Baldur's Gate 3, created by Larian Studios and is the third installment in the Baldur's Gate series of games. This one takes place 100 years or so after the previous game, and it ties into the events of the Descent into Avernus adventure module for D&D 5th edition. Now, I'll mention here at the start of the video that this will be a mostly spoiler-free review of the early part of the game and the general overview of the feel and mechanics, talking about its basic fundamentals, but I do intend to talk about at least some of the early story elements. If you do want to avoid spoilers, even minor ones, then there will be a spoiler warning message that comes up and you can skip the video until the message is gone. Right, let's get into it, shall we? First of all, my general impression of the game is very good. I have over 100 hours in the game already and I've played through Act 1 3 times, not including my several playthroughs during early access. I wanted to compare how the game had improved and changed, as well to try all possible routes and choices in the early section of the game to see how it would affect the later acts. I've done good playthroughs, evil playthroughs, middling kind of playthroughs. Now, I could be a little bit biased with how I feel about the game, as I am literally its targeted audience. I fucking love D&D, I run my own home game, I play on online games with friends. I have over 200 hours in Divinity Original Sin 2, that game is a masterpiece. It seems that the general consensus anyway is that the game is very well received, people really like it, and Larian did an amazing job making this game. Now, to get into some of the more detailed overview of things, starting with the general gameplay and mechanics, I can say the game does play quite well. There are a few bugs here and there, but nothing that's been too much of an issue. The game looks gorgeous, the visuals for environments look great, the enemy models are really interesting and cool looking, the spell effects are fantastic. You see someone cast Eldritch Blast and you just go, whoa. Sometimes you'll stop and you'll move your camera around to look at the surrounding scenery. You can tell that Larian put a lot of effort into making every bit of the game have attention to detail, and it makes it just wonderful to play. Now, their turn-based combat system, Larian's quite familiar with this. They've had it similar to this in Divinity, but this is the more 5th edition true version. There are a few variations to the rules, such as how sneak attack works due to the high ground rule, some things like smites not expelling a spell slot on a miss. Some of the feats have been altered to reflect more of the mechanical side of the gameplay, but I think all of these changes have been really good to make the game more fun to play. It's okay to sacrifice some of the original D&D elements, so it's more fun for the player. An example of this could be how normally Revivify does not work like the way it does in the game with the Revivify scrolls. They work basically like True Resurrection, but it allows people to bring back dead players easier. It means that you don't have to get to 10th level and unlock the Resurrect spell, or pay hundreds of thousands of gold to an NPC. Now, there is a lot to the game when it comes to its features, allowing you to respec your character at will, allowing you to summon hirelings to make custom party members, allowing you to dye your equipment so it matches your style and looks unique, the fact that some spells and some potions will last until long rests, meaning you don't have to worry about them running out. I could go on and on about all the different things the game has that are really good, but I think you get the idea. Let's move on to the characters, shall we? Now, there are a lot of characters in Baldur's Gate 3, and I don't want to spoil anything about the villains or the future companions, so I'm mainly just going to be talking about the main 6 characters that you meet at the beginning and you can have as companions. This includes Astarion, Gale, Karlach, Lae'zel, Shadowheart, and Will. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I wasn't a fan of most of the characters during the early access. I couldn't quite put my finger on it until they changed a few things on the full release, and I began to start liking them. They made minor tweaks to the characters, such as the way they're introduced gives you a better idea of who they are, what their personality is like. And they also gave some of the characters a bit more humility. It felt like beforehand when you met the characters in early access that they felt too good to be in your party and were quite rude. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's an interesting character trait, but it just felt that all of them had that aspect to them. Now with some of the characters, when you talk to them, they open up to you, they talk to you about their problems, show some of their vulnerabilities, and it means that you want to care about them and learn about their backstories. That was another change I liked as well. Beforehand, they kept a lot of it to themselves, kept their cards close to their chest. And that does add a sense of mystery to it, but it's nice to have something to work with. Now you get something about their backstory a lot earlier, a lot more naturally, and it means that you can build a bond with them a lot quicker and let that relationship develop a lot easier. Now, obviously, that's not to say that all characters are an open book. Some things they do still keep to themselves, and you have to get to certain parts in the story for it to develop. But I do think the writers have done a great job writing for the dialogue. I think the voice actors have done a superb job in the voice acting department. And it means that now when I talk to the characters, I like them a lot more. Even some of them that are a bit more, still have that rude element to them. They don't just feel like mindless NPCs, they have depth. Also, if you're wondering, my favourite companions are Karlach, Shadowheart and Gale. And of course the best boy, Scratch. Now this review would not be complete if I didn't mention about the romancing. Like in other games such as Dragon Age, Cyberpunk 2077, Witcher 3, the game allows you to romance your companions. And yes, you can have sex with them. For most gamers that's enough motivation, especially because Larian did not hold back when it came to the cutscenes for it. But genuinely, the romancing is actually quite good. Each character you romance is in a different sort of way. Some of them are quite straightforward and before you know it they want to sleep with you, while others it's more of a slow burn and it makes you invested in your character's relationship with them. And when it comes to romancing, it isn't just I say the things you want me to say and I do the things you want me to do. That is a large part of it. But you also have to take into consideration that the choices you make outside of your one-on-one encounters with them, they will approve of certain decisions or disapprove of certain decisions. This means that your companion's feelings are not isolated to your one-on-one encounters, and the story choices that you make as you go on the adventure matters. Also, I noticed there is a theme with a few of the characters that they have these like ailments or some sort of issue. I won't go into specifics for spoiler reasons, but the way you respond to this issue with them or what their ailment is to them could heavily affect your relationship with them going forward. And if you perhaps maybe make the wrong decision, they could leave. Right, the next part is about the game's story. This will be mostly spoiler free, but I intend to talk about some of the basic stuff you learn from within the first few hours of the game. If you want no spoilers, then you can skip when the warning comes up on the screen. So the story so far, from what I have seen, has been really good. There's a sort of mystery unfolding as you're trying to speculate and piece the clues together. It feels like a real D&D campaign with fun side quests and interesting villains. It does have this chosen one element to the game, which is fine, but I do find games that have this idea of a chosen one, and that being your character, really funny, when you could accidentally die from misclicking and jumping off a cliff. Now to get into the specifics for the story, I am going to put the spoiler warning here now, so make sure that you skip, because I'm going to talk about some early story aspects and some overarching plots. So, you learn that you have a Mind Flayer tadpole in your head, and over time you discover that there is a strange magic stopping it from turning you into Mind Flayer. Basically, you get all the psionic benefits of a Mind Flayer without having to be a slave to the hive mind elder brain. Now, this is a very interesting concept and a very neat idea that's quite unique to the game, I feel. I know a fair amount about D&D lore, and the little snippets you get as you're trying to investigate about this tadpole is really interesting. An example I can think of is when you discover that actually the magic that's being affected the tadpole is Netherese, which, if you know, you know. If I could compare the early story of the game to something else, I would say the part in Divinity 2 after you leave Fort Joy. In Divinity 2, you are someone who can use source magic, and at that part in the game you are looking for people that can teach you how to use it. And there are a lot of different avenues you can go on, and a lot of different people that can teach you how to use source. In Baldur's Gate 3, you're looking to remove your tadpole, and there are a lot of people that might be able to help you get rid of this tadpole. I think it's very similar in having this non-linear design, but a very clear objective. Get rid of the tadpole, but approach it however you like. Unfortunately, you do discover that no one seems to be able to get rid of this tadpole, and obviously it's very important to the story. I will say, on a negative note, now that I have played Act 1 3 times, and this was me doing different options on each playthrough, I have seen some of the gears and cogs that make the story happen, which was to be expected. There are certain dialogue choices that on your first playthrough are really interesting. It makes you feel like your decision really matters. But on other playthroughs, after me picking different options, I realised that they all lead to the same outcome. Like I said, this was to be expected. A game can have many branches, but there still need to be certain story beats that always happen. It's just unfortunate to know that in certain instances, no matter what I pick, the outcome will be the same. For an example, when you meet Raphael, the devil, he offers to take away your parasite. But whether you say yes or no, the same outcome happens either way. He doesn't help you. All in all, I do think the story seems really promising so far, although I haven't completed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds. I would say that if you have played the game in early access but not had the time to play it on full release, it's worth not trying to skip through Act 1, as some things are new and there's a lot of extra content that's been added. Alright, spoiler warning, done. We're done with story. So, what are my final thoughts on the game? From what my friends have told me, and they've got a lot further than I have, Act 2 is super fun and challenging and has a great atmosphere, while Act 3 does lose a slight bit of its polish, but it still has a great variety of things to do. I might post an update video at some point when I finish each act, if people want me to do those follow-up videos. Finally, a bit of constructive feedback for Larian. It'd be great if you could add a colorblind mode. One of the people I play with is colorblind. And if you could add some more UI options for the visually impaired, as I know some friends also have struggled with trying to figure out the different UI elements. Also, if you could reconsider the Game Master mode, it would be so good to have. If not, I imagine some modders will likely make something similar and allow players to make custom adventures using Baldur's Gate models and engine. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching if you've watched all the way through, and don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Bye bye for now.